Kurandaf Nun Amid Beis. Moving on to a new topic, which was mentioned in the Mishnah by the two dots. In the Mishnah, we had said, after we said the Umman and the Aris, we said that a man can have chazaka in his wife's nechasim. And it's very simple. Very simple. Why? A man, generally, when we talk about a woman's nechasim, the general assumption is, unless we're talking about particular circumstances, whatever belongs to a wife, the husband is allowed to eat the peiros. A husband always has the default stance of a wife's property during marriage is that it's nichsei malug, and the husband is in charge of working it and getting the peiros, and then it returns to her after marriage. So how can a man make a chazaka by saying, I was on this for 3 years? When we talk about a chazaka, which has become more clear to me this go-around in Chazkas Abatim, the default of chazaka is getting the produce of the land. It's working the land and getting the produce. So how can a man have a chazaka if the Torah entitles him, or the Chacham entitled him to eat the peiros, without, obviously he doesn't own the land because he gets the peiros. So how can he come after 3 years and say, my wife sold me this piece of property, and then I used it for 3 years? That chazaka is not indicative of a purchase. It's indicative of his general right to have peiros in her land. So that's what our Mishnah said. Isha says, a woman, a wife is required to make a macha. Now, when we say you have to make a macha, it means that otherwise it would be a chazaka. If someone is holding on to a piece of land, a wife does have to make a chazaka. And the Gemara first defines what is that case. The man. Who is the one holding on to a wife's land that she has to make a macha? If we say it's talking about a wife has a piece of property and someone other than her husband is being machzik in it, that's not true. Any person is not able to make a chazaka in a wife's property. Someone who's not the husband, who let's say he went and he bought it from her, he's claiming I bought it from her and made a chazaka, and she did not make a macha on it. So Rashbam explains, because a wife always depends on her husband that he's going to take care of the complaining. He's going to be the one who's going to deal with all the financial matters. So since she depends on him, she doesn't make a macha. Therefore, the chazaka of an outsider in a wife's property is not a valid chazaka, because we don't expect her to make a macha. He could be just using it, and it's not because he bought it, but the reason why no one said anything is because she was depending on her husband, and her husband was a lady geyer and didn't do anything. El alav, so therefore we reject that possibility. So when we said that Isha Tzricha, when Rav said an Isha has to make a macha, it's not talking about when someone else made a chazaka. El alav v'bal, it's talking about where her husband is holding on to a property. So then she can't say, I expect my husband to both be the one making the chazaka and make a macha. That would require schizophrenia. Amarava. So l'chayra, we see that Rav is saying that a Isha does have to make a macha connected her husband, unlike our Mishnah, which said that she doesn't have to make a macha because she allows him to eat the peiros. Amarava la'olam bebal. Yeah, we're talking about the Baal. Our Mishnah said that a husband can't make a chazaka. We're talking about with the husband, rather than making a chazaka, like we said, the typical chazaka is someone using the karka and benefiting from it. His chazaka was the opposite type. Instead of benefiting, he was was hurting the karka. He was making holes in it. He was making digging ditches and doing damage to the karka. Um, so that she can't. You don't say that the reason why she didn't complain is because he was benefiting from the payers that he's entitled to ultimately say malum. Because he's not benefiting, he's just doing damage. So she should complain about that. It's one thing if he's getting the payers. So she says, "Oh, he's acting like a regular husband. The husband gets the payers." But if he's doing damage, then she should complain. Correct. The Gemara of Amar of Nachman Amar of Barvua Ein Chazakal Nizakin. We have a quote from Nachman that he says that you cannot make a chazaka by doing damage. Chazaka has to be by doing something productive. If you dig holes for 3 years, that's not a normal thing for a person to do. So the person just says, this he's a meshugana. He's doing damage to my field. If he was an owner, if he was going to claim he's going to be an owner, he would be using it the way you normally do it. He'd be harvesting. This is just a vandal. I don't have to make a legal protest. Maybe I should call the policeman and have him stop because I don't want the damage, but I'm not worried about the ownership of my property because this guy's doing damage. So Gemara, Ema, no, that's not what this din of Rav Nachman he said ein chazak l'nizak means. Ema ein din chazak l'nizak. It's exactly the opposite. When someone what Rav Nachman was saying when he said that it's ein chazak l'nizakin, he's saying that there's no din that you have to wait 3 years. If someone starts damaging your property, you have to make a complaint immediately. And that's what we're saying, that as soon as someone when Rav Nachman said, so you wanted to answer. We wanted to answer. How do we answer the stira that we said in our Mishnah that a man can't make a chazaka b'nechse ishtay, and Rav said Isha has to make a macha, and we explained. So we said that l'chayra has to be talking about where the Baal is making a chazaka. But we said the reason why she has to make a macha in this case is because he was doing damage. So he said, but Rav Nachman says damage is not a chazaka. We're saying no, a damage can be a chazaka. But what Rav Nachman is saying is that damage is a chazaka immediately. It doesn't have the din that you have to stretch it out over 3 years. As soon as a woman or anyone for that matter sees someone damaging their field, if the woman, if the owner is blasé about it and doesn't complain, that immediately shows that they're not an owner. Any owner, if they see someone coming down to their field, would immediately say something. So that's one teretz. Iba Yisema, I'm sorry, Iba Yisema, another possible teretz on our original stira that we had said from Rav, that ein machzika b'nechsei ish beishash ish, that ema ein. I'm sorry, it was ema. What is that? Ha'itmar Allah instead of lav. Ha'itmar Allah Rav Meri Yama b'kutra of Zir Ama b'beis hakisei. That this member that we said that you can't make a chazaka is talking about a totally different thing. It's talking about someone, and we had this din before, that there are certain types of damages. We were talking before about where someone has a 2-story house, and we said that there are certain types of hezek that you can't put downstairs. But if someone has a storehouse upstairs, you can't have a barn downstairs because that will damage upstairs. So we wanted to say that there are certain things that are allowable if the person does it for a certain amount of time. Eventually, it's basically an easement. Once you have your barn downstairs, it doesn't. The person upstairs can't complain that it's damaging because you already allowed it to stay like that. So what Rav Nachman was saying, ein chazak l'nizakin, what he wants to say is these specific types of hyper damaging uh, neighbors. So one was Bekutra, Rav Miriam of Bekutra, where there's smoke coming up. Even if someone has been making, I don't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was a baker, a nachtem, I think, who has a bakery going on downstairs. Even if it's been going on there for a while and the person upstairs didn't complain, it still doesn't amount to a right because it's so damaging. No one would allow it. It's not assumed to be that he was okay with allowing it. So someone's using it as a beis akise, and that type of damage also a person doesn't allow. So we're saying ein chazaka l'nizaken. It's not talking about the din of making a regular chazaka by digging holes in a piece of karka. It's talking about this specific chazaka of like of an easement where you've been doing a type of damage for a while. He's saying that these types of damage, a person never gets a chazaka. He never gets the right to continue doing. So again, so that's another teretz of Rav Nachman. Even though we said ein chazaka l'zaken, over here we're talking about going shechafer baris sichus u'ma'aris. Rav Nachman is not negay, and that's how the husband makes a chazaka in his wife, because he's not benefiting that we're going to say it's just him exercising his right to payers. Rav Yosef has a different approach to answering the stira of what Rav said. Isha la'olam ba'achar. It's not talking about ein machzik b'nichse isha. It's not talking about where the wife, where someone else is being machzik in the wife's. It's not talking about where the husband is in machzik in the wife's property. It's really talking about where someone else is. And we had said the problem with that is that she depends on her husband to be the one to protest. So therefore, we said that there's no chazaka. We're talking about with this person who did the chazaka. He started it during the lifetime of the Baal, meaning he's saying, I bought it from your husband who bought it from you. And he has a chazaka that started while the husband was alive. And then he continued the chazaka for 3 years after the husband was no longer around. So now once the husband is no longer around, so she can't depend on saying that the reason why I didn't make a protest is because my husband was going to protest. He wasn't alive. So and why is he believed to say that it was bought from the husband? The chazaka is against the wife. There's no chazaka against the husband. So why did the husband? So how is he believed to say such a thing? He could have said, you know what? I just bought it from you after your husband died. I did a chazaka, so it's straightforward. There's no husband involved. Even though what my time is that I got it from your husband and your husband got it from you, and I don't have a chazaka for the part of that your husband bought it from you, and I'm saying that I got it from a time when I don't have a raya to the fact that your husband bought it from you. He's mehamen with the migo that he could have said that he just bought it from her direct. Gufa. Amara. Ein machzikim b'nichsei eishes. This is the original memra that caused this whole problem. That Rav said you can't make a chazaka in the nechasim of an eishes ish. How can we say we had asked Amarav eishes ish trichalim? That's what we had to. That's what we had to talk. That's what our whole discussion was. But the Yanegala Amru Machzikin. The Yanegala disagree. They say that you can make a chazaka in the nechasim of a eishes ish. We don't worry about this concept that Rav was concerned about, that the eishes ish will defer to her husband to make the protest. So therefore, it is possible to make a chazaka. Amar Rav halach the Yanegala. Rav said the halach is like the Yanegala. Amar Rav Kahana Ravasi l'Rav Hadir Mar Mishmaisei. You just said machlekes Rav and the Yanegala. The Rav says you ain't machzik. The Yanegala say you are machzik, and then Rav said I paskin like them. He's passing against himself. That's strange. Amalahu mistavra ami kadur Yosef. So you want to know what he meant to say is that they argue in general. They hold that one can be machzik b'nichsei eshes. But Rav had said a specific application that he brought from Rabbi Yosef, where the woman was machzik. Where the man was claiming he bought it from the wife who had bought it. I'm sorry, he bought it from the husband who had bought it from the wife, and she made a chazaka after 3 years after he was dead with a migu. And that's what Rav was saying, that in that case, I agree, like we said before. In that case, I defer to the Dayani Gaila, the Taka right in that specific case, but he's not really saying that the halacha is like them. He's just saying the halacha is like them in that specific case. Okay. Now we're going to flip it around. Until now, we've been talking about making a chazaka in a wife's property, which is essentially nichsei malug, while a husband is running the property. So we said different pshatim, either that we're talking about the husband. Well, the Mishnah was talking about a husband making, and then we had the memra of Rav. This is all where a wife's property is being taken from her, or someone is claiming there's a chazaka. Zok the Gemara. The Mishnah continued and said a wife cannot make a chazaka in her husband's property. Zok the Gemara pshita. This is pasha, and this will. It's very nice when the Gemara says pshita because that tells us the reason for something that we don't know the reason for in the first place, but it may make us feel a little silly for not thinking of this. But the Gemara explains, given the Islam is zayni, since a wife is entitled to get mezainis, so when she is going and taking fruit from the trees, from her husband's trees for 3 years, and then she pops up after 3 years and she says, "Oh, my husband sold me his orchard," he'll tell her, "What are you talking about? I told you could eat because you're entitled to mezainis. I have to feed you, so that's why I let you eat. So how can you use that as a chazaka? That's what you get for being a nice guy." And so he said, "Kivan Islam mezainis kachla. How could she make a chazaka? What does the Mishnah have to tell me? She can't make a chazaka. She's eating mezainis." We're talking about specifically in a case where the husband had said, "You get I'm putting up a sign at the front of my house. You get the mezainis. You can get your food from orchard A, and all my other property you don't have a right to." So now when she goes and she sits for 3 years eating from a different orchard, that's a raya that she has a chazak. That's what the Mishnah is telling you. No, even if it's a different orchard, the husband still is often, since he has a chiyuv mezainis, he'll be, like we said in the Mishnah, the way the Mishnah described it, the way the Rashbam in the Mishnah described it is, he allows her to be the administrator, to be the manager of his fields, and it's not a raya for the fact that he's using it. That she's using it. Zak Gemara. Now we're going to move on to really a different question, and this is a diak that we've made a bunch of times in the Mishnah, in different contexts, both by an aris and by what was it, an omen. Haraya yesh, but the diak from our Mishnah is that was saying that she can't make a chazaka in her husband's property, but if she produces a shtar that says that my husband sold me this karka, she's believed. In fact, the Gemara, there's a svara why even that should have won. This sounds very, this is going to be a little bit shalom bias challenging, this Gemara. The Gemara says, maybe the whole reason why he made a fake sale. Maybe when a husband sells his wife property, all he's trying to do, it's like the investigators that are trying to track down marital assets. He's trying to figure out if she has any cash. Like we've said, generally, whatever property, the way the Rishonim explain it is, generally whatever property a woman has during marriage is given over to her husband, so he can use it, he can deploy it, to invest it, or he could buy a property and get the payers. So he wants to find out what property she has that she's holding out, what checking accounts she has. She's not telling him. So he says, "Do you want to buy my property? It's going to cost you $100,000. Do you have $100,000?" And she says, "Oh, that sounds like a great deal. I know that property is worth 200. Yeah, I've got $100,000 socked away." And she shows up with the 100,000, and he takes it and he says, "Thank you very much," and he walks away. The Gemara is saying that we would assume that he really never intended to sell that property. Even though he took the money, all he meant to do was find out what money she has. So Zok the Gemara, why would our Mishnah be medayik that if there's a raya, if she has a raya that she brought a property, she gets that property? He's all he was trying to do. Why don't we say, like we're going to see, there is such a svara that's going to be brought down explicitly that a husband, when he sells something to his wife, all he's really doing is trying to find out what money she has. This seems to indicate that we don't hold of that svara. So no. Maybe what the mission, when our mission is meduyik, that if there's a raya, it goes to her, it's taka. It wouldn't work if she produces a star that she bought it and she gave him money. We're talking about when she produces a star that he gave her the property of b'matana. In that case, she'll be believed. There's no legluya zuza involved in a matana. All he's doing is giving her a gift. How would that accomplish the goal of getting her to show her cards? Amalei Rav Nachman le Rav Huna. Lehava marga bamba urta b'tchuma darmina milim alyis. Rav Nachman said to Rav Huna, "You missed out when we were learning by the Tchum, and we said wonderful divrei Torah. Amalei my milim alyis. So what's these gavaldik dvarim? Amrisu hamaycha sadl ishta konsa. We said that someone who sells a property to his wife, she is kaina. We don't hold of that svara that was just mentioned. We paskin that a man can sell property to his wife and she owns it. Amalei pshita. He said to him, "Why did you have to tell me that? I could have deduced it on my own." What kind of kinyan? At this point, the Gemara understands that when someone is makna to his wife, she gives him money and he gives her a star that the karka belongs to her. So he said to him, I don't need you to tell me that we don't say Gluya Zuzah Hudaboy. Dal Zuzah Mehach. Even without the Zuz, even without the kinyan of the money, which we're saying maybe that wasn't a good kinyan because he just took the money in order to, because he really wants to take it to use it as nifseh looking at the payers from it. The tikni b'shtara. She should be able to kind of without a kinyan kesef, just with the star that he gave her. Now it's a challenging svara to say this, right? Because we would understand legluya zuzah, whatever he's doing to make a kinyan is all in service of his goal of getting the money. But the Gemara believes that if he was just trying to get money, all he would do would be a kinyan kesef. He wouldn't go so far as to make a star. So why don't we say just the star itself? The fact that he gave her a star should be a kinyan. That a person could be kind of even just with a star without the kesef. So why are you telling me this great chiddush that we're not dependent? We don't hold of the svar of the gluya zuzah. We know that that's true just because we're assuming that he gave her a star. He gave her a star, and if he gave her a star, the star itself should make a kinyan without the kesef. Amalei, he said back to him, this that we just said, we quoted from a Mishnah, that that which we said that you could be kind of kesef with a star, that's only a star matana. If someone writes on a piece of paper that I'm giving this piece of property to Yana, and hands over the star, that's a kinyan. Al b'shtar mecher, but if someone writes a star and says, I'm selling this karka to, Reuven says, I'm selling this karka to Shimon for $100, until Shimon hands over the $100, that star is not kaina. So a star on its own cannot make a kinyan of a mecher. So don't tell me that it's not a chiddush it's pashut that we don't say legluya zuzahu debai. He's only doing it legluya zuzahu because anyway there's a star. But and you could be kind of with just the star, but the star is only kind of with the kinyan matana, not a kinyan mecha. So in this case, he was making it was a mechira. Correct. The Gemara of Moisav Rav Hamnuna b'shtar ketzad. Didn't Rav Hamnuna ask the following question? B'shtar, how do you make a star? That which we had said, Leishtanol b'shtar matana, that Shmuel had said that you only kind of with a star matana on its own. Rav Hamnuna asked a question on Shmuel. B'shtar ketzad, how do you make a kinyan with a star? Kasav le'al niyar oyal achares. If someone wrote the star on paper or on a piece of earthenware, even though the paper or the cheres was not itself not worth a shava pruta, and he writes in it shadei mechuralach shadei knuyalach, or the aleph is I think matana shadei nesunalach. Yeah, if he said that I want to sell my field to you, or I want to give my field to you, hareza mechuru nesuna. It is a mechira and it is a nesina. So we see over
even
here,
without kesef. Is that what the question is?
Yeah. We're saying that it happens without kesef, right? We said there's no value in the piece of the star that you're giving, and he's not giving anything else at the same time. And we differentiate. We say it's both nesuna and mechura. So l'chayr, at least that's why the Gemara is going to go back on that. But certainly the original impression is that would apply. That you can make a kinyan star, even with the mechira, just with the star, without giving the kesef. So tomorrow, so that shver on Shmuel, who says that a kinyan with a star on its own is only by nesina, not by mechira. But Shmuel himself had answered. I'm sorry, or the Rav Hamnuna would ask it, answered. But that's talking about with someone selling a property, that which we say you can even do a mechira without giving kesef along with it, and just giving the star will be a kinyan. That's a specific case. That's talking about someone who's selling his property because it's a damaged property. It's very not good property, and therefore he's gomero makna very quickly. He just wants to get it off of his books. It's like it's an apartment building that's rent controlled, and he's only getting $500 a month, and his expenses are $600 a month. And he found a sucker who's willing to buy the apartment building from him. So in that case, something a damaged or a flawed property, he's willing to sell even with just a kinyan without getting the kesef. That which we say that you can't be kind of kesef. Everything always comes down to what is the person who's selling? Is he really goymer das? Is he finalizing? Is he willing to put his heart into selling it? Is he really agreeing to it? So in this type of case where it's a flawed property, he's goymer makna even before he gets the kesef. Zaktumara. Rav Ashi Amar. Rav Ashi gives another teretz, right? Rav Hamnuna had asked that we see from the Brisa how you kind of with a star, which we said hareza mechura nesuna. So we see that you can even make a star when just mechira. That contradicts Shmuel, who said that a mechira is only with kesef. We're talking about where even though that brisa seems to be talking about two separate dinim, a matana or mechira. It's talking about where a person really wanted to give it b'matana. It says that he gave it either mechura or nesuna. Even if he wrote it b'lashon mechira, it's talking about where he's giving it as a gift, but he writes in the star that I'm selling it so that this person, if it gets taken away from him, let's say Reuven is the one who's giving property to Shimon, and he doesn't want Shimon to just be he doesn't want him just to have status in his field as a gift. He wants him to status as a purchaser. A purchaser has rights. A purchaser if the property is taken away from him, he can go back to Reuven and say, if Reuven has other creditors who come and take Bal Chayv, who say that their lien precedes the gift to Shimon, they'll take it away from Shimon, and Shimon will have no recourse. So Reuven says, I want this to be a real gift. I want you to be able to keep it. So if anyone comes and takes it from you, here's a star that says you're a purchaser, and therefore you can come back to me or to my estate and get your money back for the mechir. Correct Gemara, right? We said that Rav Nachman had said before, we don't say the svara of Legluya Zuzahu Deboy. Right? Rav Nachman says, like Hava Gabon Ba'urta, when we said that we don't say such a svara. If someone borrowed money from his Eved Knani, and then he was Meshacher, Mina Isha V'Girsha, or from his wife, and then he was Megarisha. Ein lo alav klum. They're not able to get the money that he borrowed. My timer. Why is it that they don't have a right? He borrowed money from them, and now they want to take it back. La mishom damrina legluya zuzahu deboy. That he never, when he said, I want to borrow money from you, he wasn't really borrowing money that he should give back to them. All he wanted to do was find out what money he has. So we're talking about the way the Rashbam explains it. We're talking about where we don't have any rights about the actual money, but he wrote a shtar to either his Eved or to his wife saying, I'm borrowing $100 and I'm making my my property meshubed to this loan. So now she comes to him and says, I have a shtar that says you owe me $100, or I have a shtar that says that I'm entitled to take this field because you never paid back the money. And he says to her, what are you talking about? I just did it because I wanted to find out what money you had. I never borrowed money from you. I just wrote the shtar, Legluya Zuzah. So, l'chayra, this is a raya fakir from Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman had said that we don't say the svar of Legluya Zuzah, but we're saying now that the wife, we're talking specifically of a wife. I mean, this also says an Eved, but we're bringing it for the wife part, that a wife, we do say Legluya Zuzah because we're saying that the wife cannot be goy for the karka. Zok Gemara Shani Hasam. We say over there's a specific reason why we don't believe that in addition to there is a somewhat of a svar of a Legluya Zuzah, but we will only apply it in the case where a man says that he borrowed, where the woman is saying he borrowed money. Because generally people don't want to borrow money. It's not a pleasant thing. It's the Chachamim say, that's I think from the pasuk, right? From Mishlei. So the person doesn't want to be in that position. So that together with the svara of the Legluya Zuzahu Deboy will be a reason to say that this never really happened. He never borrowed the money. But in our case, where the husband is saying that she is saying that he bought that he is saying who bought from who? Laila Isha Benichse Baila, was she saying she bought his property, then we wouldn't say that he could reject the sale and say it never happened, and all I was doing was just trying to uncover our money, because why you could buy something. There's nothing wrong with buying. So now you're coming up with this Vaita Svara. Now we don't put that together. Shalach Rav Huna bar Oven. Oh wow, no, it's late. Okay, we'll stop over here, Be'ez Hashem, and we will hopefully continue tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem. What's tomorrow?
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah.